Hey everybody, how's it going? Baxter, Steve Nikorak. Here we are at Zone Sports Academy, getting ready to work on our Monday recap. Our recap from the weekend, recap from the games, practices that we might have had, tournaments that we might have had. So let us know where you're watching from. Let us know the level that you coach at. Are you a beginner coach, advanced coach? Are you coaching a rec team, travel team, tournament team? Any questions that you have for us, shoot away, ask away. Coach Steve, so how was your weekend?
It was good. It was good. I mean, I have so many notes and, things that we have to work on as a team. Our main topic for today is going to be arm care and pitching and how to manage your pitching staff, especially those pitchers that do both, that play a position, that also pitch. How to get everybody there working on the weekend. I have a bunch of notes on my team specifically from this previous weekend. And as always, we're going to jump right into Q&A right after that. So we're going to start today with really how to handle your pitchers as a whole. And then we're going to jump right into the live Q&A.
Always remember to ask questions. Always remember that if you like what we said, you can give a thumbs up. You can throw a couple hearts up there. Coach Steve and I love that. So let's get right into it. So a lot of coaches ask us, what is too young for arm care? We have 9-year-olds, 10-year-olds, 11-year-olds. Are they too young to start working on bands? And are they too young for working light on weights or the body blade and those sort of things? So we went to the expert. We went to with Mikey Nikorak. He designed our pitching course at Dominate the Diamond, and we're going to pull up a couple of videos from the pitching course. And one of them is just get your body going, heat up your body, get a little sweat going first, so that way your arms and your muscles are a little warmed up, and then go into your arm care. So the first video right here, we're going to show Mikey, and we're just going to talk a little bit about getting the body heated up, warmed up, and ready to go. So here it is.
Hey guys, so today we're going to talk about the importance of warming up as a pitcher. So a lot of times the pitchers are expected to do the normal dynamic with the positions players and go right into throwing. Something that I stress is coaches getting your pitchers to show up about 10-15 minutes before practice. Go ahead and start running some pulls just to get the blood flowing. By the time that dynamic comes, they run through dynamics with you. You can do the static stretch, and then once the throwing program comes, their body's going to be a lot looser, a lot warmer to be able to do that throwing program. And when we talk about the colder weather states opposed to the warmer weather states, it's a little bit easier for people down in Florida or where the weather's really nice to get loosened up. But when you're up in the Northeast or anywhere in the North really, and it's cold outside, if you don't warm your body up properly, all of these muscles, all of these ligaments in your shoulders and elbows don't really have that opportunity to stretch out and feel loose.
So some of the things that you can do some high knees, you can do some back pedals, you can do some crossovers, you can do some plyometric skips, you can have them run to center field and back. There's a bunch of different types of dynamic plyometric type drills and exercises that you can do to get your body heated up and warmed up. And then we're going to go into our band routine. Coach Mikey's going to show us a band routine that your pitchers can do to get their arms ready to go, and here it is.
Okay guys, so today we're going to talk about some bands. So I think it's a good investment to go ahead and get you guys a set of bands just as another warm-up routine, just to get your shoulders going before you start throwing the baseball. So we're going to go over 3 different exercises that you can do to get your shoulder activated before you throw a baseball. So the main thing with the bands is to make sure that your scaps are pinched back before you do any of the exercises. I have my arms locked out, my scaps pinched back, and I'm going to go out just to my shoulders. I'm not going to go past my shoulders, and I'm not going to go short of my shoulders. So depending on the kid and their age, I would say anywhere between 10 and 15 reps. The next exercise, we're going to be set up the same way, except we're going to do 90-90. So my arms are straight out, my scaps are pinched back, I'm here and up. A big mistake that you see with this is kids try to use their momentum and throw their body back. You want to make sure that their elbows are shoulder height and they're not using their momentum to get their body back. The last one, what this does is it prevents the kid from swinging their elbow way out when they do this exercise. If you tell the kid to put their glove in between their elbow and their body and don't let it drop, what that causes them to do is keep their elbow locked in the whole time and their scaps pinched back.
So those were some good arm exercises, you can go to Jaeger.com. Jaeger has a great little drill card that has, I don't know, 10 or 12 different exercises that you can do. But Mikey just showed you 3 really easy ones that you can do right there, whether you're using the bands or maybe your players only have little the 5-ounce baseballs and they're actually going through. They can do the same exercises and the same drills just holding a baseball or a small little weight. So those are some good exercises for that. Anything else you want to talk about arm care style?
Yeah, I mean, I think the biggest thing is making sure that your players are getting loose and getting a sweat in before they pick up a ball. So often we go to the field, and we actually just ran a clinic not too long ago in Montgomery, New Jersey, and we got there and kids are firing balls all over the place. They're playing catch, they're long tossing, and they really haven't gotten a stretch in. And it was cold out that day. I mean, we were bundled up, we had winter hats on, and kids are just firing balls all over the place. So I think it's important to create a good foundation for them. So at 8, 9, 10 years old, they know that when they get to the field, before they pick up a ball, these are my stretches, these are my warm-ups. And, especially at that age, there's no right or wrong way to do it, right? Getting out there, getting a sweat in, teaching them that we're going to do a 10, 15-minute dynamic, a good stretching program, band exercises. We have so many things in our pitching program, in regards to how to properly warm up. But then when they pick up the ball, they have a stretch in, they have a sweat in, and they're ready to go. So I think that's important, is just creating that foundation and making sure that every single day before they play catch, they have their routine. It's like their daily vitamins.
I think it's great because Coach Jaeger right here has popped up a pitching question right off the bat, so let's get right into it. So I coach a 12U, basically a rec team. I have a number of players who can pitch great off flat ground, but then struggle big time off the mound. What's a good drill for that? So what he means by flat ground is just right on the ground, just like they're playing catch. Pitchers will throw to a catcher or throw to each other, and they're actually on the flat ground and not on a mound. So he's saying that they do well off flat ground, but then once they go on the mound, it's a different story. So I guess my question to you is, Coach Jaeger, one of the things that happens sometimes is the pitcher doesn't necessarily have bad mechanics or can't throw strikes. Sometimes he's actually afraid of hitting the batter, or the distraction of the batter all of a sudden creates all different types of anxiety or worried to hit the guy, and all of a sudden they forget about focusing just on the strike zone and the glove, and they're looking at everything else that could possibly happen. So I think one of the things that you can do is have your hitters stand in when your pitchers are warming up. Do the flat ground, but then put the home plates there and have batters stand with helmets right next to them. So now you're turning even their flat ground into almost like the pitchers are actually throwing. So you can line up 4 pitchers, 4 home plates, and 4 batters, and you can have 4 guys going at a time. So while they're doing their regular flat ground is great, but now adding that in, that also helps your hitters track balls. They can call out ball or strike. They can, track pitches. That gives them way more, an opportunity to see some live pitches thrown. So that's a good thing that you can mix into practice. That might really help you out.
Yeah, and I'm even thinking about our 12U team from this past weekend. We played one game. We're in a spring league because a lot of the kids are playing middle school now, so we can't really play tournaments in the spring. So we're playing a spring league, and we played one game yesterday, but we have 12 guys that can pitch. So what we did yesterday was each pitcher threw 1 inning, and then our plan was whoever didn't get to pitch in the game, they're going to throw live on Tuesday at practice. So basically, we're going to give everybody a shot. At getting their innings in, getting used to pitching with batters in the batter's box. But Tuesday's practice is going to turn into, just another game, as opposed to, going there and just throwing our flat grounds and doing our practice work. Those guys that didn't pitch, or maybe the few guys on your team that struggle on the mound, you get them their work in during practice. So just like Duke said, with throwing to a batter in the box, here you can actually make it a live situation, right? You can have a coach stand behind the mound calling balls and strikes, and you really play it out just like a game. Because I think a lot of what Duke said is true, where kids get nervous. There's an umpire, there's balls and strikes on the line, and they start to worry about all the things that are going on outside of just, okay, I have to locate my fastball right here. So I think the more in-game situations you can throw them in, the better.
Coach Christina has a question from Maryland. Coaching 7 and 8-year-olds, I love any tips you have for the fear of getting hit by the ball. I have a player who basically steps away from the ball and barely swings because he's so afraid of getting hit. I think this is the most common question. We get this at least once or twice every single Monday. And we see it every day with kids that we coach, teams that we coach, our own kids, my own kid. Depending on the level of pitcher sometimes, if he throws really hard, you'll see some of the kids, they'll start stepping out. They kind of want to analyze and see if he's throwing strikes first. Like, all those things go on in their head. So, I think it's definitely normal that this happens. Tips that we may have is, take that player aside and ask them like what they're afraid of. Are they afraid of getting hit? Are they, almost talk through it with them of, what they're afraid of. Are you afraid of getting hit? Are you afraid you're not going to get a hit? Are you afraid that the ball's going to hurt? Are you afraid, what are you afraid of? And kind of talk about it and just get it out in the open, not with the whole team necessarily, but maybe just you and that one player, and get really deep about what it is, because then you'll really be able to help them understand that, if you're stepping out, you're not going to be able to hit the ball. The ball's not going to hurt. Who knows what what their answer is, but I think that helping them learn how to get hit properly, how to stay in the box, and how to make sure that they're turning, how to make sure that it's going to hurt less as they're not going to open up and take one in the face. You're going to teach them how to turn properly. Some of those things will really help out. One of the things I would say not to do is move them closer to the plate or put buckets in front of their feet. Don't trap them into feeling like they can't move. Just kind of work with what they say, and but there's a lot of things that I think that's the number one tip, is just talking to them and talking through it with them of what they're really afraid of.
Yeah, and then like Duke said, teaching them how to get hit properly is huge. So teaching them that they do have enough time to get out of the way of the ball. Teaching them to drop their barrel, tuck their chin, really turn in. And then while you're throwing batting practice or doing front toss, I have an incredible ball right here, but you mix some in, right? And while you're doing front toss, maybe you hit them. You throw it towards their butt or towards their back, so that they know, oh, I do have enough time to get out of the way. And then you start adding them in, whether it's an incredible ball or a smush ball. And in batting practice, you're feeding, your regular batting practice, but then eventually, maybe 1 out of 10, you're going to throw one right at them and hit them. And I think once they understand that they do have enough time to get out of the way, and they don't have to, fear getting hit. Kids get up there and they're so worried about getting hit by the ball that they're not even worried about hitting the ball, right? Priority number 1 is get out of the way. Priority 2 is, if it's a strike, I'm going to swing. And that's where you'll see, like you mentioned, kids bailing out of the way. They're nervous, they're afraid. So like Duke said, talk them through it, explain that you're only going to get hit a couple times. You're only going to get hit a couple times out of the entire season. So we don't want to waste all those at-bats worried about the 2 or 3 times that we're going to get hit. Teach them how to do it properly, and then add it into practice. You can make that a station using tennis balls or smush balls. This is how we're going to get hit by the ball. And once we get hit in the butt or the back of the leg or maybe in the back, those parts of our body that don't hurt nearly as bad as the chest or our hands or our face, I think you're going to have players step in there with a little bit more confidence.
Definitely. Coach Schneider says he's reaching out from Ohio. Pitching question for 12U. Dom will go a little bit lower. 12U mechanics are struggling to throw above 50 to 60%. Other than that, having them throw 10 to 15 pitches at a target every practice. What else can we do to get better command? Well, Coach, I think one of the things that you can do is once they're pitching, if they're pitching in the game, if they're pitching in practice, pretty much document and write down and have a little log of what is their strike percentage. Let them know what their actual strike percentage is. Maybe they're only throwing 3 strikes out of 15, and you show them, and you're like, look, here's what you're doing. Here's a goal of ours as a team. We're trying to get 70% strikes. We're trying to, try to work on command, but track it so they can actually see, so it's actually something that they can, look at and be like, okay, I got to really concentrate harder. I got to focus. I got to make sure that during our throwing practice, right, when we're doing our throwing routine, Coach Steve and I love doing the throwing game. right? So when you partner up and you throw, you get 2 points if you get hit right here, and you get 1 point right here, and you get no points anywhere else. So you're playing catch, and the first 1 to 15 wins. 2, 1, 0. So every day that they're playing catch and they're practicing their throwing, they're focusing on hitting a spot, hitting a target, and I think that will really increase and help your pitchers. Not only your pitchers, but everybody that's throwing. They're throwing with a purpose. They're throwing to hit a target. They're not just throwing the ball. They're actually trying to hit a certain spot on your chest or on your hat to actually get a point. And the more they do that, the better they're going to get. If you still have people that are throwing the ball wildly, well, then you need to work on their throwing mechanics. But sometimes it's just as simple as, okay, this is for points. We're having target practice. Let's see who wins. And you'll be amazed at how much the kids all of a sudden start focusing and concentrating on exactly what they're doing.
I think Duke just hit the nail on the head. It's so important that we warm up with a purpose. So whether it's the target competition, the points competition, I see guys even on my 16U team, they go down to the bullpen to get loose, and that's just what they're doing. They're just getting their arm hot. But balls are flying all over the place, and now they expect to go into the first inning and be locked in. And it's really tough to flip that switch and go from, okay, I'm just throwing to get loose, to now I have to command the strike zone. I have to have a feel for all of my pitches in the strike zone. I noticed it yesterday with our 12U team. So, at the end of their, Duke's Apple Watch is going off. At the end of their bullpen session in pregame, I think it's important to throw to a make-believe batter. Right? It's not just, all right, we're going to throw our 15 pitches just to get loose. Well, no, all right, now that we're loose, we threw our 15, 20 pitches, now I'm going to throw to 2 batters. And the catcher is going to call balls and strikes, and we have to make sure that we're locked in and that we flip that switch before we get on the mound, before there's an umpire behind home plate. And like Duke said, play catch with a purpose, warm up with a purpose. We're not just there strictly to get our arms loose. It's to make sure that by the time we step on the mound, we're ready to go. So everything Duke said there, documenting your pitches in bullpens, really keeping track of your progress from week to week, I think is huge. Every time your players throw a bullpen, even if they're 12, you can have a coach or another player that's throwing that day document balls and strikes, and you create a competition out of that. All right, well, we threw 15 pitches, but I only threw 7 or 8 strikes. Well, that's not going to get it done, especially in the game when the pressure really happens. So anytime you can create competitions, I think you're going to start to see their focus really heighten.
Coach Steve, one of the things that happened last week, I think it was on Thursday or Friday, our team was playing against another team, and they had like 4 coaches out there, and it was like those 4 coaches it's like they were saying the same thing to every guy like all the time, and it was a lot of like, when the ball was hit, everyone was screaming like a different situation. For the outfield, when the ball was in the outfield, like all the coaches were. Can you talk a little bit about delegating kind of responsibilities to the coaches on your staff, so that somebody might be in charge of the outfield or somebody might be in charge of this, so that way it's like they're hearing one voice opposed to like,
Definitely.
That one ball that's hitting 4 coaches yelling maybe 4 different things to that player, and
Yeah.
you're like, holy smokes.
It's hard to see the whole game all at once. Right, so let's say it's me, Duke, Mikey, and TJ out coaching. Well, Duke's job is going to be to work with the infielders. So he's talking to the infielders about communication, who's got coverage, who's got the bag on a comebacker to the pitcher, all different situations, bunt defenses. He's going to talk to those guys. I might be overseeing the entire game. Mikey's going to call balls and he's going to call pitches to our catcher, and Coach TJ is going to work on the outfielders alignment. I think if you give each coach a specific job, they're locked in on that one area of the field. But if there's 4 coaches in the dugout and everybody's screaming all at once, it's like we say it every week, we're not playing a video game. So we can't just call out, all right, ground ball to the shortstop. Now everybody's yelling. 2 coaches are yelling 1, 2 coaches are yelling 2. Now, the kids are out there, they're freaking out, and they don't really learn the game. They don't understand, what a baseball IQ is. They don't get to read the pace of the ground ball, know the speed of the runner. All those different things, the game within the game, they never really understand because they have 4 coaches constantly screaming out instructions to them. So, it's easy to get confused. It's easy to get overwhelmed, because their parents are screaming from the stands. Their teammates are all yelling. It's almost too many voices at once. So I think delegating one specific job throughout the game to each coach is huge. And I think it helps the coaches too. This way they can really focus on, all right, I got the hitters today. I'm going to talk to the hitters. You're going to work with the infielders. Coach Mike's going to work with the pitchers, and TJ's working with the outfielders. they go into the game, they have a plan, they can meet in between innings, talk about situations. I think you're going to be a lot more productive doing that than everybody trying to manage everything.
The same play happened yesterday. My son Tyler was playing third base. There's runners on first and second. So we said, hey, Tyler, ground ball, step on third, throw it to first, whatever. There was a really fast kid on second. So here comes the ground ball to Tyler. He gets it. The runner's practically right next to him. So Tyler stopped and saw him. The kid started backpedaling. So Tyler then went to go chase him back. So he goes to chase him back to second. Then one of the coaches yelling 1-1-1. Meanwhile, there's now a jam at second base. There's two players there. Tyler's looking trying to, and then he just takes off and just turns and runs to third base, steps on the base and got the force out. And it's you told him what to do. He kind of knew it, saw it, but then the distraction of the ball and the runner and him hitting on the brakes just it's real easy for them to just forget, and then and who knows what's going to happen. So like Coach Steve said, you're preparing them before it happens, and then once it happens, it's up to them to figure it out, make the play, and that was an interesting situation. But
it reminds me of yesterday too. We're playing a game, and I think it's the number 12 hitter's up, and you can tell he's way younger and way smaller than everybody else. And it might have even been the coach's son, the way the coach was talking to him. But the kid gets in the batter's box. He only got 2 at-bats the whole game because he's batting last. And he chased the ball in the dirt. And the coach threw his arms up in the air and he screamed at him, "We cannot swing at balls. We cannot swing at balls." And my other coach looked at me. He's like, "That's got to be the coach's son, right?" I'm like, I'm sure. Next pitch, ball's up over his head. And, of course, the kid's nervous. And he chases strike 3. And, it just goes back to what we talk about every week, that, practice time is our time. The game time is for the players. So if you see a kid struggling, I don't recommend screaming from the third base coach's box, because that kid looked paranoid. He was so afraid to chase a bad pitch. He was just, doing whatever he could to make contact. And, the kid struck out and got yelled at again. And I felt bad for him because we've all been there. We've been down 0-2 and, we're so afraid to strike out. We forget about competing, and we forget about, looking for a pitch to drive and, having a good 2-strike approach. I think he was so worried about letting his dad down or letting his coach down that, he just got nervous and overwhelmed and chased a pitch way above his head. And I think we have to be aware of that, right? We can't put added pressure on our players. They're nervous enough as it is. All right, we got to equip them at practice with, a good approach and all the tools that they need to be successful. And then in the game, let them play. Let them have fun. Let them learn and fail. And, from there we can retouch it, the following week at practice. But I'm not a fan of barking out and screaming from the dugout and third base coach's box. I know we want to help, but sometimes we have to take a step back and let the kids play.
This is a good question from Coach Larry. How can you teach a pitcher to keep his composure on the mound? That's an awesome one. That gets back to the mental game. So, depending on if the kid just, walked 2 or 3 batters, or did he give up a big hit, or just keeping his composure in general, I think that, one of the jobs of us as coaches is to make sure that our shortstop and our catcher have a good relationship with that pitcher, to where when the going gets tough a little bit, we can tell the catcher to go talk to the pitcher, call timeout, slow him down a little bit, or the shortstop, because we only have those 2 visits. That's it. So if the pitcher's losing his composure, we call timeout, we go give a visit, we come back out 2 pitches later, he's losing his composure again. It's we can't just be the ones that go out and talk every time. So making sure that the catcher can go out, the shortstop can go out, explaining what that is, what you're saying, but making sure that the pitchers have a routine. Maybe they take their glove off. They step off the rubber and they're just rubbing the ball for a minute. They're taking a couple deep breaths. They're refocusing, resetting themselves. They put their glove back on, and now they get back on the rubber. Sometimes it's taking a step back. It's taking a breather, not just getting the ball and throwing it, getting the ball. It's slowing everything down and helping them have a routine, that breathing, thinking good thoughts, thinking about one thing. Where's my location? What am I trying to do? Where's my target? And really getting them to focus on that, opposed to what might have just happened, or I threw 3 balls in a row. But it's also outside and external things that can also affect that, right? If there's a coach yelling at them, "Hey, come on, let's go. You're supposed to be throwing strikes. Get the ball down." Or mom and dad are screaming after every pitch that he throws, and they can't then focus on, we see that all the time. A pitcher throws a ball and you the dad's right behind the backstop and he's going like this. And then there's another ball that he thought was a strike and the umpire called it a ball. And now the dad's going nuts and you see the kid just practically start to melt on the mound because he's either embarrassed or he doesn't know what to do, or maybe he's supposed to be going like this when the dad goes like this. And next you know, the pitcher's arguing calls and you're like, what in the world is going on? So resetting, taking some deep breaths, stepping off the rubber, rubbing up the ball a little bit, and just kind of having a way of kind of refocusing yourself. But you as a coach, figuring out what each pitcher, what do they need to reset? Because you know those guys that trigger real fast, and you know when they need help. It's kind of being able to diffuse that before it happens. Knowing that, oh, we just gave up a hit, he just threw 2 balls in a row. Okay, Johnny, go talk to him for a minute and calm him down. And then having them be able to, opposed to it getting past that phase. But
yeah,
that's what I think.
That's spot on. I think there's certain kids that, you know, need a kick in the butt and other kids that need to be coddled. And I think it's our job as coaches to work with our catcher, to work with our middle infielders, just like Duke said, and understand the individual and understand what makes them tick. And like I said, some guys you can get on, and some guys work well under pressure. And you know, I have a kid on my team, he's a football player, and I hope the other team is chirping at him, and I hope, you know, the other team hits a double, because it's just going to fire him up and it's going to lock him in that much more. And then other kids, you know, they get out there, and you just got to be cautious with, you know, how you address those situations. But like Duke said, I think the pitcher-catcher relationship, I think your middle infielders being able to step in there, because it's good to hear it from their teammates. It's not always good to hear it from a coach or hear it from the parents, like Duke said. Hearing it from the teammates is huge, and a lot of times they're buddies, so they know the personality and the individual, and it's a lot easier of a conversation as opposed to, you know, hearing it from the stands or hearing it from the dugout.
I think this next question is a good one. It's a good one. My son's in 10U travel. My son was benched for 2 innings. The coaches took him out of the batting order. The coaches said they didn't know he was coming or not. We clearly RSVP'd a week ago. We even got there a few minutes before the game started. Another player actually came late, and the coaches put him right in. This is not a playoff game. Also to note, it was a blowout win for our team, so the benching seems unnecessary. I don't remember it being a rule. I'm also a coach for another team, and I would never take a 10-year-old out of the batting lineup. What is your perspective on this, and should I talk to the coaches about this?
I think it's a tough question for us just because we don't know, you know, the team rules and the team guidelines. You know, was the whole team there an hour before going through warm-ups, or does everybody kind of just show up before first pitch? So I think there's a lot of gray area that we're not aware of. I communicate a lot with our team, so I think that's number one is, you know, if there's a guy that's maybe coming a little bit late, and, you know, we always get there an hour early, but if one of my players is going to be there late, they'll always text me, or I'll reach out to them like, hey, you guys going to make it on time? You know, and then maybe I'll bump that player from leadoff to batting last, just to, you know, if it's going to be a game time decision, he shows up a few minutes right before first pitch, I'll put him at the bottom of the order to make sure that we don't get an automatic out for him not being there. I think it's good that you're asking us, because I think a lot of times the tempers run hot the day of, and I could see your frustration, especially if you weren't aware of the rule. I don't think there's anything wrong with talking to them. We have a 24-hour policy here to where we allow the parents and the coaches to kind of calm down and not be in the heat of the moment and be bashing each other in the parking lot. So I think it's good that you took a day to think it over. You know, and there's nothing wrong with going to the coaches and saying, you know, is there a certain policy that I'm not aware of? You know, do I have to get there a certain amount of time before the game? Because maybe your son was in the lineup, and then a couple minutes before first pitch, they're wondering, you know, if they are going to make it, or if your son's going to make it, and they crossed him out. Personally, I'm a big fan of batting everybody, especially, you know, not in playoff games. It gives everybody an opportunity to play all over the field, free defensive replacements. There's so many benefits of batting everybody in the order. But I think that's just a conversation you have to have with your coaches, and, you know, try your best to be calm and cool and collected. And, you know, again, it's hard for me to say without knowing the full backstory, but I can see why you're frustrated. Absolutely.
Yeah, I'm pretty much dead on with Coach Steve what he just did, and I don't think there's a problem with asking the coach, and like you said, just, you know, I just want to make sure that I'm, you know, am I not aware of a rule that, you know, that's why he sat, or, you know, we did get here early and we thought he might go in the, like, who knows? Every coach is different. Every, you know, teams are different. So I think it's definitely, I think it's a good question though. Let's see here. Larry Smith. I pitch to 8U players in practice. Is it better for me to throw to them from one knee versus standing? Wasn't sure if the difference in height's giving them an angle of the ball that won't help them in a game. Well, I think, Coach Larry, it depends on how tall you are. Are you 6'2" or are you 5'5"? But we like to sit on a bucket. You know, we like to just get a little bit lower. You can take a knee and throw. But another thing you have to remember is if they're only 8, there's a lot of lollipopping going on in their throws. So if you're taller and you're throwing this way versus a ball that's going like this, you know, you want to try to simulate the best you can. Then you're going to have 8-year-olds that throw hard and 8-year-olds that don't throw hard. So I think whatever's going to give you the best chance of throwing a strike and you feel most comfortable with. But I think that you know, your question's dead on, that, you know, taking a knee and throwing from there is probably better than standing up. But you know, even you could do something like, you know, with the younger guys, even if you just, you know, you kind of just widen your base a little bit and you have the bucket in front of you and you're just kind of just doing this in a little bit of a smaller, you know, a smaller fashion like this, so you're kind of down, opposed to standing really tall and trying to throw that way. So if you just kind of widened up and just threw this way, but, you know, whether I'm that way or I'm on my knee, I'm practically almost the same height. But I think that's a great question. But I think whatever you're most comfortable with and can, you know, whatever you feel looks the most like what your team sees.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's a great answer right there. I think, you know, I throw from a knee sometimes. Sometimes I get to the field and the L screen's horrible. So I just try to figure out ways to throw BP without getting smoked with a ball. So I always have zip ties with me to make sure I fix up the L screens. But throwing from the knee, I like to sit on a bucket and do short overhand toss. But again, whatever's going to help you throw strikes. I definitely agree with Duke that, you know, the lower you can get, the more on, you know, eye level you can get. I think the more benefit you're going to have to your players.
Coach Conrad, what are your feelings on the last batter being almost like a second leadoff? Or is that just BS that a coach uses to hit kids last? I don't know. I mean, I think when you look in the big leagues and you look at the leadoff guy and the 9 guy, they are very similar usually. They're fast, they're contact guys, you know, they put the ball in play. So I don't think there's any BS in it. I think it just depends on, you know, some guys will do lineups like 1 through 4, 1 through 4, 1 through 4, like, and almost like redo batting lineups. So it's 1 through 4, then the number 5 batter is like another leadoff guy, and they reload that way. There's so many ways to do batting lineups, especially at the younger ages, because, you know, depending on how many fast guys you have, you don't want to be a fast guy behind a slow guy. You don't want to have, you know, 2 big guys that might not run too well and then have your fastest batter right behind them. Like, so there's a lot of different things I think that go into a batting lineup and why you do it, but that's almost like team by team. But heck, if telling a kid that's batting 9th that he's like another leadoff hitter to make him feel good, who cares? Like, you know what I mean? Like,
yeah, that's good. And again, it's hard to answer that question because every team, like Duke said, the makeup of the team is different. So, you know, some teams are going to be stacked, and the guy that's batting last could be batting leadoff on another team or could be batting second on another team. You know, I think whoever's swinging the hot bat at the time deserves the shot in the front of the lineup, and there's nothing wrong with that. And shuffling the order around a little bit. I do, you know, looking at my team, usually the last guy in the lineup is very similar to the leadoff guy. Maybe he's not as consistent or doesn't put the ball in play as much or doesn't have as productive of at bats, but you know, he's somebody that you can turn the lineup over and flip it over to the starting lineup and, you know, the front of the lineup and get guys on base for him.
Coach Carter, my son's team won the USSSA first tournament this weekend, an 8U machine pitch, going 4-1. We really love watching all your videos and implementing them in hitting and workouts. Awesome, congratulations, that's great.
Thanks, Coach.
That's awesome, that's awesome. Yeah, so I'm trying to think of something else that happened this weekend. You know, we have an 11-year-old team, and you with the 12s. It's, you know, for us, it's the first time that there's leading and stealing and pickoffs and secondary leads and first and third plays, and, you know, trying to communicate that to the players. It's like you see something happen and you're like, ooh, this would be a perfect time for this. But by the time the pitcher throws the ball, the next pitch, the runner's no longer in that same spot anymore. So what you're thinking about doing, if you were in the game, you would put the play on yourself. But trying to relay it in, you're like, okay, he did this last time. All right, you put the pickoff on, and then the kid's barely even leading, and you're like, no, that's not what. We don't need to do the pickoff now. Or the pitcher goes to lift his leg up and he throws it anyway, and the guy's still only on second base. So I think one of the challenging and fun parts is getting them to know when to put those plays on, and you giving them the okay to put them on. Yesterday it was the 5th inning. We had a pitcher and a shortstop were in there. We had 1 inning before that. We had tried to pick off. It didn't work, and these guys put it on themselves. We had a daylight move. Our shortstop gave the glove. The pitcher came to the hat, knew it. Next thing you know, boom. He gets it, fires it over. We pick them off, and they did it all by themselves. And we were like, let's go. Like, that's awesome. So I think they need to know that it's okay to put it on their own. If he's safe, or the pitcher makes a bad throw and the ball goes into center field, you can't just scream and yell, or they're never going to do it again on their own. Instead, let them know the different situations. Well, with a runner on 3rd and 2 outs, maybe we don't want to try to pick off the first base or second base in case something goes wrong. So you kind of give them parameters, but you want them to be able to see the game and feel the game by themselves, because that's how they're going to get good at it. And they can't be afraid or scared that if they make a mistake, you're going to rip into them, or else it's just like Coach Steve always says, then you're just playing a video game. You're telling them what to do, they're doing it, but they have no feel or no, they can't do it on their own. So I think that's something that we went through this weekend that was really fun to see them make the pickoff on their own.
Yeah, that's huge.
Coach Murphy, I've been doing a lot of drills for my team, but need work on baseball IQ. Any suggestions on how to best teach baseball IQ? We'll put some baseball IQ cards that we have in here. We made a few, and one of them actually has the answer to the test, and the other one's just kind of 6 blank cards, 6 blank fields. You put the number of outs, where are the runners, and where is the ball hit, and then you have your players actually draw lines on the sheet to show where every single player on the field should go. And then we also have like an answer card to go along with that. But I think the best way to get baseball IQ is to put base runners on the field and then hit balls live. So you put runners on 1st and 2nd, you tell them 1 out, and you hit that ground ball to the shortstop, and you see what happens. And you see where everybody goes. You have 2 coaches out on the field, 1 kind of talking to the outfielders, 1 in the infield around shortstop and second base. You have 1 guy hitting the fungos, and you just let it play out, and then you talk them through it, and then you put a runner on first base and no outs, and you hit a hard ground ball to second, and then he's going to turn 2. You hit a soft ground ball to second. Now he's got to make a decision. Do I have time to throw it to second or to first? And you almost like put guys in different positions, and you really challenge them with the situations, because a lot of times the younger guys, since they haven't done it enough, you can't just say runner on second, no outs, and then hit a ball. They have no idea where that runner would be, how far he's going, where he's going. Put an actual runner on second. So now when you hit the ball to left, now the pitcher sees it, and the pitcher goes for the cut. The third baseman's covering the bag. 1 guy's got his hands up, and they can see what's going on. For us, it's easy to do when the kids are in high school or college and say runners on first, because they understand what happens on a ground ball to the right side of the field. They know where the runner's going to be going, where the cutoff's going to be. The younger guys, they don't know. They don't have enough experience yet in that. So throw base runners out there, give them situations, and watch the baseball IQ increase really, really fast.
Yeah, that's all really good stuff. I was going to talk about the base runners being on base in practice. I'm also a fan of having multiple coaches kind of spread out throughout the field. So if you're doing situational defense, and Coach Duke's working with the infielders, maybe he's standing right behind the middle guys, and he's standing behind the shortstop saying, all right, what are you thinking right here in this situation? Ball's hitting the gap, where are you going? Or, ground ball to the right side, what are you doing? And kind of talk to them, talk them through it. You'll get some funny answers sometimes, and kids really won't understand. But I think the more you can get in their head and kind of spread out around the field and talk to each individual player about the different positions on the field, I think you're only going to see growth. And I'm also a fan of moving guys around in practice in multiple positions. If you lock kids in on one spot, then they understand their position and they understand what they're supposed to do in different situations. But I think moving them around and getting them accustomed to playing all over the field is going to help their overall baseball IQ. So it's not just the first baseman needs to know what the first baseman needs to do on a base hit to right field and a runner on second. It's the whole team does. So we all know, okay, in this situation, the first baseman's doing this, third baseman's backing up here, whatever that situation is, but the kids understand as a whole where everyone's supposed to be, not just where they're supposed to be.
Coach Josh, like this one. Hey, our 9U team's half kids, half of them are 9U and half of them are 8U. That said, there's a huge difference in skill. So when I'm throwing batting practice, some kids can hit really fast and some can barely hit underhand. Should I be throwing the same speed for all the kids? I think that, I think you break them up. You have more coaches, you break them up. You have some guys that you're throwing normal to, some guys you may have to throw underhand to and teach them how, but then get it to where you can throw harder and harder and harder. If you just stand there and fire balls at the 8U and he's not hitting anything, he's just getting frustrated, he's struggling, and he's not getting any better. If you have to teach that kid by tossing underhand, then taking a knee and throwing, and then moving back and then throwing a little bit harder, you have to keep building them up to build their confidence to be able to hit the faster guy. So I think that you can break it up by skill level and then just keep on getting them to grow, because you also have to remember some of those 9U kids, can they hit the 8-year-old that's throwing lollipops, right? We see that all the time. Some guys are like, oh, he's throwing too slow, I can't hit him. Well, you better be able to hit him. We have to be able to hit the fast guys, the slow guys, the in-between guys, the lefties, the righties. So I think that that's something that you can do in the stations is, hey, one station is a little bit more challenging than the next, one's a little bit easier than the other, and they have to be able to go from station to station and help them out, work with them, and see how it goes. Coach Chad, do you happen to know when spring will arrive in Iowa? Been dealing with low 40s and lots of wind. I know the weather here in Jersey has been the same way. It's cold, hot. This weekend was really nice, and then this weekend it's supposed to jump back down to the high 40s and low 50s again. And it's like, when is spring coming? But
yeah, we had mid 60s yesterday. I got there in a short sleeve shirt, and then by the third inning it was 15-mile-an-hour winds and I was freezing. So, it's just go to the field prepared. Be prepared for hot weather, cold weather, and hopefully it gets there soon. We got a few comments. Coach Josh, Coach Jim, all in the same boat.
Yeah, agree with that. Coach John, hey, had a great weekend. Kids are 2-0. Any good exercise for arm strength for throwing that you guys recommend for 11 and 12-year-olds? Coach John, you can check. We in the beginning of the podcast, and you can re-watch this. We had some exercises that we showed, some armband exercises. We also have a download of some armband stuff that you can look at that'll really help those guys out. So, hey coaches, thanks for doing this one in the batter's box. Should we teach the load on back leg right away or weight over center?
Yeah, that's a good one.
Yeah. Hey coaches, thank you for doing this. When in the batter's box should we teach load on back leg right away or weight over center, and go to your load? As you guys say in the hitting motion, do you want to go over that one?
Definitely. Dom, I'm going to use this middle camera here. Coach Miguel, awesome question there. I think a lot of players struggle with this. It's when do they get loaded? So I think you'll see most kids, their mechanics break down when they don't get loaded on time, right? They get into the batter's box, they wait, and then crash. So he's asking, do we teach them to get loaded right away on their back leg? I think it's going to depend on who's pitching that day and how fast that pitcher throws. So I'm a big fan of starting nice and balanced and starting relaxed, because there's going to be kids that take forever to throw the ball. And then there's going to be kids that come set and they slide step and get to the plate really quick. So we have to make sure that everybody, when they get in the batter's box, they're nice and balanced and relaxed, and then their load can repeat itself. It's consistent, right? So if my load is 1, 2, and I'm firing on 3, right? It has to be that way if I'm facing a guy throwing 42 miles an hour or I'm facing a guy throwing 65. It just depends on when do I start. And what I mean by that is, if I'm facing a kid that is throwing really slow, I might not start my load until he gets here. Now, if I'm facing a kid that throws really fast, I might start my load when he gets here, right? So we're talking about subtle differences, but I always tell our guys when we're on deck, when we're in the hole, even 3 batters away, grab your bat, get up in the dugout and just stand here and just kind of work on your timing and work on your rhythm, because every player is going to be different too. Some guys are going to have leg kicks. Some players like to do a little toe tap and gather, and then other players start wide and kind of just go heel up, heel down. And there's nothing wrong with any of them. So we have to make sure that, we're working with the individual, and we're also working with whoever we're facing that day. What kind of a pitcher is going to be on the mound? Is he throwing fast? Is he throwing slow? Does he have a big leg kick, and does he take a while to get to home plate? Or is he a slide step guy and goes quick? But I'm a big believer in that our load should be nice and smooth. It should be controlled, and it should never get rushed. As hitters, we should never feel rushed, and we should also never feel like we start and stop. So many kids I watch, their parents are screaming, "Get your foot down early," and they're in the batter's box, and the pitcher starts his motion, and they do this. Well, their foot down's early, right? Their foot's down on time. They got loaded in time, but now they have to sit there and wait, and then they start to get jumpy. So try your best. I like talking about counting during the load, right? So if my load is 1, 2, boom, I'm firing on 3. I'm doing that on front toss. I'm doing it on tee work. And then when I'm in the on deck circle, I'm actually watching the pitcher, and I'm saying in my head, or I can even count out loud, 1, 2, boom, and I'm firing on 3. So trying to repeat that as much as possible. Talk to your players about timing, about what the load even is, what timing is, and then obviously, like I mentioned, seeing who you're facing that day. What kind of a pitcher are we facing today? Does he throw fast? Does he throw slow? Is he quick to the plate? Does he take too long? All of that stuff goes into it. So I think it's tough to kind of bundle it all into, get over your back leg right away. I think there's a lot more that goes into it. And again, it all comes down to what age you're coaching too, right? Are the kids really young, or are they a little bit more developed? But teaching them how to load properly, I think, is going to help big time.
We got one more question here. One more question, Coach Adam. Do you have any suggestions on how to know when to approach an ump on a bad call? The umps we had this past weekend had ball strikes, outs. The calls weren't that good, but we had several very questionable calls. Is it a bad taste to ask the other ump behind the plate to review their partner's call on, say, a tag at second or third when the field ump had a bad angle? I mean, Coach Adam, that's part of the game. I think when you go and you're at home plate and you're going over everything, going over the ground rules, make sure that you get the name of the umpire so you can write it down on your card so you can call him by first name, not just Blue or ump or whatever. Hey Mike or hey Joe, and maybe the first baseman, the umpire at first base, boom, you thought he pulled his foot, you walk out, you talk to him, you say, can you please ask the home plate umpire, can you go please ask Mike, I think he pulled his foot. And then it's up to that umpire to either go ask for help or not ask for help. He may say, no, he was on the base, he's out. Or he might be like, let me check. Then he goes back, he asks. Now, the home plate umpire may say, yes, I think he pulled his foot. Well, the other umpire can either agree with him or he can keep the call the same. So that's just how you do it. So if the umpires, are adamant and they're just busting chops, like that's part of being a coach and an umpire and part of the game. That's how it's done properly. So, I mean, you can question calls. If something was questionable, you think he missed a tag or you think he pulled his foot, or yes, you go out there, you call timeout, you ask him, you go talk to him, and if you do it in a classy way, there's a lot of umpires out there that just don't want you to talk to them at all, and that's part of it too.
Yeah.
But
definitely a big fan of getting their first name. I do that every single game. I'll get the first name, I'll write it down, and even throughout the game when you're not challenging a call, just have communication with them. Talk to them about anything, whatever. How many games you jumping today? How's your day going so far? Little things like that I think are going to make umpires more approachable. But if we're just on, in the dugout or on third base and we're screaming and yelling all the time, those guys don't want to hear it from us at all. So I don't take you as one of those coaches because you're asking right now. So I think writing down their names, having communication throughout the game, and there's absolutely nothing wrong with going out and asking them to ask for help. I think it's a good one. Let's just finish up with Coach Jim's.
Okay.
12U with a field shortage in our town. the field is available. The field that's available to me is larger than I need. So, all right, so you're coaching a younger team and you're on a 60-90 field. You know, I would definitely recommend bringing an extra set of drop bases, right? So you can actually measure out, you know, whether it's 46-60 or 50-70 that you coach, but you can actually measure out the infield. You know, the pitching is going to be difficult, especially if you're trying to throw on the mound. But if you go down to the bullpens and you have an extra home plate, well, you can still use the same pitcher's mound, but you just walk off 46 or 50 feet, depending on how far your pitchers are throwing. You know, and then you can do everything the same. You can do you know, infield, outfield. You can do cuts and relays, all that stuff. I think the one disappointing part is your kids aren't going to be able to hit homers or hit the ball very far, but you know, you can play games with them in batting practice. If they hit it over the infield dirt, it's an automatic double or a home run. But I think as coaches, we have to have props. We have to have smush balls, tennis balls, drop bases, extra home plates, you know, mini wiffle balls, have as much and have as many tools as you possibly can to make your practice productive. Because again, you're going to get to the field sometimes before games and there's not going to be a batting cage. You know, there's going to be no nets. There's going to be no nothing, and we have to be prepared for whatever, so that when we get out there, we can do a proper warm up. Our kids can hit, you know, and they're ready to go. So I think making the most of it. Sometimes, you know, you get stuck on a big field and there's nothing you can do. Sometimes you're going to get there. There's going to be no bases. So I think the more prepared you can be, the better.
Awesome. So, like we always say at the end of the show, please make sure that you add any questions in the comments. We'll make sure that we get to them next Monday. We'll attack those questions. We'll try to answer as many as you can. We also, you know, utilize videos. Check out our YouTube. Subscribe to our YouTube channel. We're adding a different video on there every other day. There's tons of drills, templates, conversations just like this, fixes for all positions, all disciplines. So, you know, make sure you check out our YouTube. On Facebook, you see we have tons of stuff on there, so we try to get you as much as you possibly can. On the dominatethe.diamond.com, we have blogs. So on our blogs, we also have videos. We have downloadable templates. So we're trying to share as much of this content with you as we possibly can. So check out our membership, check out our pages, give us a thumbs up and bang the heart a little bit if you thought this was a great session. And also put in the comments something that you would like to hear in our next live Facebook shows. Are there certain topics that you want us to talk about? Leave them in there. We'll get to them. Duke Baxter, Steve Nikorak, Inside Zone Sports Academy. Make sure you dominate the week, dominate the diamond.
Thank you, guys.